It Ends With Us is in theaters now, so grab your friends, wear your florals, and head out to see it.
Are you wearing your florals? I'm wearing my florals. If you are a fellow online person, I'm sure you too have been subjected to the inescapable, actually never-ending drama of the It Ends With Us press tour. And if you haven't, I'm jealous, and I apologize in advance for the information I'm about to impart. Much like its predecessor, that is, of course, the equally chaotic and unfortunate press tour for Don't Worry Darling, the It Ends With Us press tour has been marked by very strange red carpet interviews, alleged beefing between cast, producers, and directors, and most notably, the mishandling of the film's very serious subject matter. It has come as a surprise to many that this film is actually about intimate partner violence and breaking the cycle of abuse. If you were among those who were surprised by this revelation, I'm sorry, and I certainly don't blame you, as certain people who are promoting the film didn't do a very good job relaying that information. This includes the film's own star/producer and the author of the book from which the film was adapted. So I haven't read any works by Colleen Hoover. I don't hate myself. CoHo fans, do not come for me. I'm just kidding. I think Colleen Hoover is great. She's my favorite problematic, mediocre incest author. Okay, oh my god, I'm just kidding. Seriously, I'm just kidding. If you enjoy Colleen Hoover's books, I think that is perfectly fine. You're allowed to like things, and people are allowed to criticize things you like. In this particular instance, there are many reasons to criticize this woman's writing. Many have done it before me and done it better, but also it's okay if you do get the hype. Either way, she's a millionaire, she's fine, you're fine, we're fine. Okay, I'm done dressing rabid CoHo fans. No one's making you stay here, but if you do choose to stay, be chill. Act normal. This is not a personal attack. And to those of you who relate to this subject matter in any capacity and found it helpful, I completely respect and understand that. While It Ends With Us has problematic elements, it has certainly resonated with plenty of people. Multiple things can be true, because at its heart, this is a story about survival, breaking the cycle of abuse and generational trauma, and that none of us are immune to being in that situation, despite what we may tell ourselves, which is why it has been so incredibly frustrating to witness the unseriousness of this press tour. Wear your florals, bring your girlfriends, look at Blake Lively's own designer clothing she wore in the film. While you're at it, maybe purchase some products from her hair care line, even make yourself a cocktail with Betty Buzz named after the abusive character in the film. Go see Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, It Ends With Us, but definitely do not ask Blake Lively about the best way to approach her with your own story of DV, because...
But for people who see this movie, who relate to the topics of this movie on a deeply personal level, they're really going to want to talk to you. This movie is going to affect people, and they're going to want to tell you about their life. So if someone understands the themes of this movie, comes across you in public, and they want to really talk to you, what's the best way for them to be able to talk to you about this? How would you recommend they go about it?
Like asking for like my address or my phone number or like my location share, or I could just location share you, and then we could I'm a Virgo, so I'm like, stop it, I'm a Virgo.
There are countless testimonials from people who, understandably, didn't realize what the film was about because of the flowery rom-comedy of its promotion.
Hello, Blake Lively here.
Colleen Hoover.
And It Ends With Us is in theaters now, so grab your friends, wear your florals, and head out to see it.
Floral fashion continues flourishing this whole press tour. How much fun are you having with these?
Best. I love it. Thank you for being in your flowers.
Of course.
She's married to her high school sweetheart, though. She's real life Lillian Atlas. That's so beautiful.
Hi, editing me here. So I am searching for this particular clip of Blake Lively describing the film as fun and romantic and a bunch of other adjectives, and saying it has hot guys and hot girls in it. And I should have saved this when I first saw it, because I cannot find this clip anymore for the life of me. But thanks to Reddit, specifically r/FauxMoi, I did find a comment of someone else quoting this interview, and apparently it had been posted to the It Ends With Us movie official TikTok page and has since been removed. So there you have it. I think that just speaks for itself. And with this lack of care, some have reported becoming physically ill or even having panic attacks upon being exposed to its subject matter. Yes, instead of directing audiences to the appropriate resources, we're doing this?
I love arranging flowers. Yours has all the flowers that mine does, but mine is like, you know, got
It looks
a little
like
more
evolved
Life
version.
experience?
Yeah, it's literally like baby.
It's young Lily and like older
Lily.
Lily. How compatible are our zodiac signs? I'm a Virgo. What are you?
I'm a Libra. Sagittarius.
Oh yeah. So we're making the hot chocolate cookies that Atlas makes for young Lily in our movie It Ends With Us. It smells great. What is it?
Hot chocolate cookies.
As I'm sure you're aware, most of this has fallen on Blake Lively, who produced and starred in the film. But let's go back to the beginning, because how did we get here? Hoover Dams, are you still here? That's not a real thing. I just made that up.
This is the Colleen Hoover death stare.
Colleen Hoover is an interesting character, to say the least. She was initially pursuing a career in social work, but always aspired to become a writer. She wrote and self-published her first 2 books in 2012 and started gaining recognition on Instagram and here on YouTube.com, as well as on several book blogs, leading to a rise in sales. Both of those books appeared on the New York Times bestseller list for self-published works, and that same year, Atria Publishing Group picked them up for republishing, allowing Colleen to realize her dream of becoming a full-time author. She wrote several more books before publishing the big one, It Ends With Us, in 2016, which sold more than 1 million copies by 2019. But of course, we have the book talk community to thank for Colleen's eventual meteoric rise to fame, which saw It Ends With Us climbing to the top of several bestseller lists in the early 2020s. Colleen Hoover's writing has attracted both avid fans and harsh critics. Her writing has been dragged for romanticizing problematic themes, as well as just being bad. I'm personally not scandalized by her works not being Pulitzer Prize worthy. I think, as with anything, people are allowed to just like things. There's room for excellent cerebral literature and also fun little smutty books. I'm looking at my script right now and I wrote smutty boots instead of books. No, Alicia, the musical is called Kinky Boots. There's a huge bug on my ceiling, so hopefully it stays over there. What was I saying? I myself can enjoy reading the classics one day, as well as trashy murder mystery novels rife with cliches the next. Some critics have described Colleen Hoover's books as trashy, abuse apologia, my personal favorite, lobotomy literature, but perhaps most accurately, for those who never had a Wattpad fanfiction phase. Strange names and tell don't show writing style aside, much of the criticism has been pointed towards her stories' bizarre and often disturbing content, with zingers like, "We laugh at our son's big balls right before that infant child literally dies in a car crash." The very clear lack of diversity in her works has also been a point of contention. Despite having published so many novels, her stories more often than not are pretty lacking in diversity, save for a side character with often shallow or stereotypical representation. And of course, she can write whatever she wants, but it does warrant asking questions about her approach to writing, as well as her thoughts on inclusivity. All I'm saying is, can we get a little critical thinking in the chat? In addition to the controversies surrounding her books, Colleen has also faced criticism relating to her personal life, notably an issue concerning her son, who was accused of sexually harassing a minor. In February 2023, a Twitter user alleged that Hoover's son had sexually harassed them when they were 15 years old. They claimed they had been friends with Hoover's son on Snapchat, who was aware of their age, and they said that attempts to address the situation with Colleen Hoover led to the author blocking them. In response to these allegations, Colleen Hoover addressed the matter in her private Facebook group, Colleen's Cohorts, in November 2023, stating, "Things being said about my son aren't accurate. People are commenting that I blocked a girl for informing me that my son sexually assaulted her when she was 16. This absolutely did not happen, and this is not even initially what was said by this person. My son and a girl were online friends for several months. They never met in person. He said something to her in a message that made her uncomfortable. He asked her to send him a pic, so she messaged me about it. I did not read the message, but she thought I did. It understandably upset her that I didn't respond. She then posted on Twitter that my son asked her for a pic. As soon as I found out about this months ago, I reached out to her. We discussed what happened. I apologized to her and thanked her for bringing this to my attention, and I offered to send her our home address and lawyer info should she want it. I held my son accountable for sending a message to her that was inappropriate. I addressed it directly with her and with my son. I didn't address address it publicly because 1, I feel it's not my place to talk about someone else's experience, and 2, everyone who knows me has seen me parent these boys and hold them accountable. I'm sad this happened. You guys know I've tried my best to raise my children with respect and to show respect. I mean, grooming allegations do seem to be a bit more than a respect issue, but okay, the book in question today, It Ends With Us, if you haven't gathered already, deals with intimate partner violence. It was actually inspired by Colleen Hoover's own parents' story and her difficult upbringing. She intended to write a tribute to her mother's strength and resilience, hoping the book would resonate with others in similar situations, and I believe it certainly has, but that still doesn't render it immune to criticism, of course. So the story is about Lily Blossom Bloom, a 23-year-old woman who owns a flower shop and writes letters to Ellen DeGeneres. She begins a relationship with neurosurgeon Ryle Kincaid, who she initially meets on a rooftop while he is beating up a chair. And then he goes to her flower shop. I guess he begs for her to sleep with him eventually, and hangs a giant picture of her that he took the night that he was fighting the chair. What? Both characters have traumatic pasts. Lily grew up in an abusive household at the hands of her father, and Ryle accidentally killed his brother when they were children. As the story progresses, Ryle's behavior becomes controlling and abusive. While many have praised Colleen Hoover for shedding light on a survivor's perspective and the complexities of staying in an abusive relationship and then ultimately leaving one, others criticize the book for allegedly romanticizing the dynamic between Lily and Ryle. They argue that Ryle is depicted as a flawed, troubled man who makes mistakes rather than an outright abuser. I'll share this one quote that I see all the time from this book, and it's from Lily and Ryle's first conversation. So Lily is sharing that her father was abusive towards her mother. She's grappling with her perspective of her father and finding nuance and defining good and bad in people, and Ryle encourages that nuance, saying, "Maybe we're both bad people." Ryle looked over at me with a thoughtful expression. "Lily," he said pointedly, "there's no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things." And the It Ends With Us SparkNotes page reads, Ryle's quote could serve as a central thesis of the novel. The idea that people are not all bad carries Lily through much of her relationship with Ryle. Ryle clearly, very early on, rationalizes this behavior by diminishing the concept of inherent goodness or badness in people, suggesting that everyone is simply a person who sometimes do bad things. A person who sometimes do bad things. This framing therefore allows him to excuse his own abusive behavior. It's explained as a momentary lapse rather than a reflection of his character. This obviously complicates Lily's perception of the relationship, as such rationalizations reflect a broader theme in reconciling love and abuse, which is central to this narrative. By the same token, while depiction does not equal endorsement, Ryle is arguably portrayed as a sympathetic character who struggles with controlling his anger, explained by his own traumatic past. Despite his vicious abuse towards Lily, this framing has led some readers to view him as simply a traumatized man in need of help, which I believe speaks directly to how this character is written. Many also take issue with the character Atlas. What are these names? So he's a prior love interest who Lily reaches out to and he reappears. And it's like, oh, he was her first love and she took him in and housed him and then they slept together and it's so romantic. Except why was he 19 when she was only 15? She was a high schooler. She was a minor dealing with enough at home. And I don't think this is presented in a critical way. He keeps asking when she's going to turn 16. There's no commentary about how this may have contributed to the cycle of abuse that they are ending with us. I don't know. There's no need for that at all. Some also feel like the Atlas storyline kind of reduces Lily's survival story to like a love triangle situation. And dissenters also take issue with the book's ending, mainly because Lily allows Ryle to have unsupervised visits with their daughter, despite the very real potential danger he could pose to a child as someone who has deep-rooted issues with blacking out and hurting people, her own mother included. Yeah, this doesn't feel redemptive. This feels like a failure to protect a child. Regardless how people feel about this book or its author, it is once again very clearly about ending the cycle of DV and generational trauma. Because after the announcement of the film in early 2023, Colleen Hoover, The author, who is a fan of adult coloring books, announced an It Ends With Us themed adult coloring book. This was met with widespread backlash because, of course, it was. Why is there an adult coloring book inspired by a story about DV? Hoover and Atria Publishing Group decided to pull the project a week after its announcement. Colleen Hoover did acknowledge that the idea was tone deaf, and she sort of apologized, stating that she could see how it was inappropriate. She said, "Thank you for the respectful discourse and accountability." Thankfully, this was just a little blip, and everyone involved in this film and its production would move forward without issue. All right, now on to the film. So Justin Baldoni, who read It Ends With Us 5 years ago, acquired the rights to the novel through Wayfarer Studios, which he co-founded. By the way, if at any point I refer to Justin Baldoni as Jason, please, no, I mean Justin. I don't know why, but my subconscious has decidedly renamed him Jason, but he's Justin. He is an actor, director, producer, and author known for his advocacy of healthier masculinity. This is seen in his podcast called Man Enough, as well as several books, including Man Enough, Undefining My Masculinity, and Boys Will Be Human, a get real, gut check guide to becoming the strongest, kindest, bravest person you can be. Just rolls right off the tongue. So Baldoni not only decided to direct the film, but co-star in it, taking on the role of Ryle Kincaid, who is, of course, the abusive character. Additionally, Wayfarer Studios is partnering with the No More Foundation to provide resources and information on DV. Clearly, this was a passion project for Justin, I'd say. In January 2023, it was announced that Blake Lively would be executive producing and also starring in the film as Lily Blossom Bloom. And her involvement certainly seemed to suggest that she was passionate about the project as well. When the news broke, the initial public reaction was mixed. Responses ranged from what the actual is Blake Lively wearing, as well as why are we making this Colleen Hoover book a movie? Did anyone ask for this? In May 2024, we see Justin Baldoni participating in press events alongside Colleen Hoover, who also had been working closely on the film. The movie finally premiered on August 6, 2024 in New York City and had a theatrical release a few days later on August 9th. As the press tour began, it quickly became apparent that something was off. And by off, I mean very, very wrong. Like a highly likely potential feud between two of the main cast and crew wrong. So interestingly, despite his deep connection to the project, Baldoni has been noticeably separated from the main interviews and press events, with no photographs taken with the rest of the cast. But not to fear. Here's Blake Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, and his Deadpool and Wolverine co-star, Hugh Jackman, in his place. But apparently it wasn't totally random for Ryan Reynolds to be posing on the red carpet with the rest of the cast, because he was actually involved in the production. At the premiere, Blake Lively revealed that Ryan Reynolds had rewrote one of the scenes in the script, specifically the so-called iconic rooftop scene, which I'm assuming is the same one where Ryle is beating up chairs.
We help each other, we work together so much. So the iconic rooftop scene in this movie, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you now. But he wrote it. He works on everything I do. I work on everything he does. So his wins, his celebrations are mine, and mine are his. I mean, he's all over this film.
Screenwriter and co-producer Christy Hall noted that she was unaware of Ryan's involvement and had assumed that there was some improv going on.
Probably the most difficult scene for me to crack was the rooftop scene. So on the page, it took a long time to get right. And then I have to say, like, Justin and Blake just killed it.
But she seemed okay with it, stating that making a movie takes a village and it was all fine and dandy, except for the fact that the script was supposed to be locked. This would have taken place during the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike. At that time, some productions were allowed to proceed, but it was contingent on their scripts being locked, meaning no new edits could be made. So Blake casually admitting that her A-list husband supposedly crossed picket lines looks really bad, especially considering the writers who were on strike, trying to fight for a livable wage. The creative differences between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively / Ryan Reynolds were apparently so significant that two entirely separate cuts of the film were made. The Hollywood Reporter cited a fracture in post-production that led to a theatrical edit as well as Blake Lively's preferred edit, which she commissioned from Shane Reed. Not so coincidentally, Shane Reed also edited Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as the Taylor Swift music video for I Bet You Think About Me, which Blake Lively directed. And she even screened this so-called preferred edit for fans 2 months before the actual premiere. It seems at this point that the entire cast is on the same team, and then there's Justin like on his own little island. Even the other cast members have been completely sidestepping answering questions about Justin as a director.
I mean, what an intense job! Like to have to do so many things. I just found myself being like, wow, this. I really just want to have one job at once. I was looking around, just being like, I'm good with just acting.
And he has spoken about the challenges of directing, including dealing with complex personalities and creative differences, but he continues to praise Blake and Colleen. He called Blake a genius, saying everything she touches is made better. When told at the premiere that it was his big night, he responded saying that it was actually a night for all the women for whom the film was made, which includes Blake and Colleen.
This is your night, mister.
No, this isn't my night. This is a night for all the women who we made this movie for. This is a night for Blake. This is a night for Colleen. I'm just so grateful that we're here. 5 years in the making.
And he still follows both of them on social media, and they either never followed him to begin with or have unfollowed him, so make of that what you will. In discussing his involvement in a potential sequel, Baldoni said he thinks there are better people for that job and that Blake is ready to direct. Naturally, there's a lot of they said with various publications reporting on different information from anonymous sources, but please note that neither Blake Lively nor Justin Baldoni have commented on anything directly at this point. One of these sources told People all is not what it seems and that there's more to the story, which, yeah, I'm sure that's very true. We have no way of knowing what was really going on behind the scenes. What is apparent, though, is that these two leads were presenting this film in a very different manner, which, given the film's subject matter, isn't great. In his promotion of the film, Justin Baldoni has directly centered the themes of DV.
In no way was this movie designed to ever ask an audience to feel empathy for an abuser. I wanted the film to reflect Lily's emotional journey, to be in her mind in a way that an audience could understand the complexity and the challenge and the situation that she was in to choose something better for herself than maybe was chosen for her. We have enough people in the world judging women for staying in these relationships. The question that should never be asked ever again is, why did she stay? And really, this movie is a response to that question. Because instead we need to be asking ourselves, well, why do men harm? Why did nobody keep him accountable? And we have to make sure that people understand why they do stay visually. And that's really what this movie is about. And it's about love, and it's about hope, and it's about romance, and it also answers that question, so we don't have to ask ourselves it anymore.
His Instagram bio contains a link to the aforementioned No More nonprofit. This movie poster, initially shared by Justin Baldoni on Instagram, is quite different from the official poster, and the discrepancies do not end there. Blake Lively has been going viral recently for all the wrong reasons, as she's been talking a lot about how the film is romantic and there's hot people in it, and how she wore Gigi Hadid and her own designer clothes in the film.
I love Lily's style. I think when you see the film, her style makes sense because she's a woman of multitudes. Those boots. Those are my boots.
Those boots are so good.
Those are my real life boots. A lot of it's my real life clothes or my husband's clothes or my girlfriend Gigi's clothes I was borrowing. I'm wearing her stuff all over it.
Oh, really?
Tons of like Bodhi, which is with the suit now that I'm wearing is Bodhi. It was meant for my husband, but it's so pretty. Look at it. You guys are not getting it in the shot.
I think that the wardrobe was a really critical part of that storytelling, and I'm really, really proud of it. But I'm wearing like a ton of like Bodhi and vintage, and it's some of my favorite wardrobe I've ever worn.
Overly expressive and fashion and fabulous, but she could also be like very grounded in utility. I don't dress like this in real life, but like I'm having to like do interviews and talk, so I'm gonna wear like a crazy pattern and really crazy rings. Rings also are like my comfort blanket. It's just a very expensive comfort blanket. I should like Snuggies instead as a comfort blanket. Instead, I like Lorraine Schwartz.
Those were actually her boots, guys. She's been girl boss gatekeep gaslighting and promoting her new hair care line, Blake Brown. Side note, I know Brown is her actual maiden name, but I don't know if it's just me. It just doesn't sound that nice for a hair care line. Lively Hair was right there. It was right there. Regardless, launching a hair care line in the middle of promoting a film about domestic violence is certainly a choice.
Compliment me. Tell me my hair looks beautiful. But your hair looks disgusting. Did you even shower?
She also has been promoting her healthy soda line, Betty Buzz, who hosted an It Ends With Us themed pop-up shop to celebrate the film's premiere. And how does one throw an It Ends With Us themed pop-up shop, you ask? Flowers, of course, the theme, it's flowers. But that's not all. Yes, you can enjoy It Ends With Us themed cocktails like the Rile You Wait, a whole alcoholic beverage named after the abusive character in the film. Oh, that's not. As previously discussed, her husband's wins are her wins, so why not cross-promote Deadpool and Wolverine while we're at it?
Why is Deadpool Wolverine sold out? I'm sorry, I got distracted back there. I feel offended, but we're not out yet. That's fine. I'm happy about that. The biggest, no, I didn't even answer it. Sorry, it's like flashing sold out.
There have been plenty of florals and hot chocolate cookies and discussing zodiac signs, and wait, isn't this a film about ending the cycle of abuse? It's not that Blake has completely avoided those topics, but compared to Justin, her discussion of these themes has been quite fleeting, and she has instead decided to focus on her character Lily and how she is a woman.
Strong and vulnerable, passionate and passive, who was masculine and feminine, who was fabulous and grounded. Like I just really wanted to show that she wasn't any one thing.
She's a woman of multitudes. She's an entrepreneur, a shop owner, an artist, a mother, a daughter, a friend, a sister, a lover. She's all of these things.
She's incredibly strong and self-assured and knows who she is, yet she's vulnerable and she's tender and she gets lost. I love that she was, masculine and feminine. I love that she liked old things and then new shiny things, that she was very utility and practical, but sort of over the top and glamorous.
She loves old, tarnished, vintage, beaten up things, but she also loves flashy, new, sparkly things. You know, the fact that she loves masculine and feminine, the fact that she loves patterned and something that's quite quiet and quaint. I think that, like, seeing that she can be a person of multitudes.
Yes, Lily is a woman. She is masculine and feminine. She likes old things and new things, and she is more than her abuse and what happened to her.
The movie covers domestic violence, but what's important about this film is that she is not just a survivor and she's not just a victim. And while those are huge things to be, they're not her identity. She's not defined by something that someone else did to her or an event that happened to her, even if it's multiple events. I think that that's deeply empowering to remind people that no one else can define you, no experience can define you, you define you. You really feel like we delivered a story that's emotional and it's fun and it's funny and it's painful and it's scary and it's tragic and it's inspiring.
What was it like for you to read Lily's character for the first time, someone who's both a strong woman and a victim of domestic abuse, and how did you bring her to life?
Well, I think she's so much more than just a victim of domestic abuse. That's something that happened to her, but nothing any one person did to her can define her.
So a lot of survivors of generational trauma and domestic abuse are going to see this film. I'm curious, what is the message that you hope that they take away from it?
And not to minimize it anyway, but you're so much more than just a survivor or just a victim. Well, that is a huge thing. You are a person of multitudes. You and what you're capable of and what you have done and are doing and will do is so much bigger than anything anyone else can do to you.
Of course, survivors of abuse are not a monolith, but many feel they cannot separate from what happened to them, that it is part of their identity. And I'll let this trauma therapist explain that much better than I.
Is anyone else seeing all the press that Blake is doing for this movie and just recognizing how completely out of touch it is? The reason this response is just so troublesome is it just completely misses the mark on understanding what trauma does to the mind, body, and soul. Anyone who has experienced domestic violence or works with individuals who have or knows someone has knows it is not just something that you can choose to not be defined by. Of course, there is more life and beauty and truth and deepness in who you are, but I think that Blake is not choosing to combine them. She's choosing to separate them, saying domestic violence happened, okay, let's push it aside because you're all these beautiful things. When in reality, trauma work and trauma healing allows us to combine what has happened in the past with who you truly are in the present to give you this full rounded picture of healing and truth in who you are. Her actions are continuing to make victims and survivors of domestic abuse and trauma feel like their story is too heavy to even talk about. Please know you are not too much. Your story deserves a voice, and you are not a burden for existing the way that you need to.
What's worse is she has been accused of being sarcastic and making light of these themes and the very real people who would be most affected by them.
Asking for like my address or my phone number or like my location share. Or I could just location share you and then we could, I'm a Virgo, so I'm like.
She did at least have the decency to follow that up with a genuine answer, but why did she say that in the first place? Like, what a strange reaction. And despite apparently being passionate about the project and having to act out such horrific scenes, many just feel like she actually didn't grasp the brevity of the film's message.
What comes to mind isn't so much about the work that went into it, but about the why behind it. If a Lily Bloom in real life can sit in this theater and maybe make a different choice for herself than was made for her, maybe she sees herself on that screen and chooses something different for herself. That's why I made the movie.
After much backlash, she did end up sharing to her Instagram story statistics about intimate partner violence, providing links and resources, which naturally then disappeared after 24 hours, as Instagram stories tend to do. But the damage had been done. People felt like she had made the press tour about herself with all the me, my, and mine, trying to sell her various product lines and talking about her designer clothing and plugging her husband's work. I've seen some discourse about how it seems like she wanted her own Barbie press tour moment, and that is exactly how it feels. But this is not the film for that, Plantation Barbie. Put a pin in that. And I don't know if this is just me being cynical, but I'm wondering if this wasn't like an intentional marketing tactic to try to get more people to see the film. I'm sure it's easier to rally audiences around a rom-com with hot people than it is a serious drama about DV, which, if that is the case, is diabolical. Intentional or not, the misleading promotion has already led plenty of moviegoers to a film they did not intend to see. And of course, all this focus on her problematic present has caused the ghosts of her problematic past to resurface. Blake Lively is not beating the Nepo baby allegations, but this did come as a surprise to many online. Basically, she was born into a family with deep Hollywood ties. Her father, Ernie Lively, was an actor and director, best known for shows like The Dukes of Hazzard and The West Wing. Her mother, Elaine Lively, was an acting talent scout, and several of Blake's siblings, including her half-sisters, are also actors. Blake's entry into the industry came through these familial connections, with her first role in Sandman 1998, a film directed by her father. Her breakout role, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants in 2005, was alongside her father, who also acted as her dad in the film. Her later successes came by way of the enormously popular The CW series Gossip Girl, you might have heard about it, as well as several other major film roles. My take is, it's good to know she's a Nepo baby. That might explain this.
Making me be his drug dealer.
What? Why would you do that? What does he have on you?
On me, nothing.
Okay, jokes aside, I don't really think she's a bad actress at all. I think she's fine. Her range is a bit limited, and that might have something to do with the type of roles she often takes on. I think she's had some strong performances. Might she have taken a spot from a more deserving but less privileged and well-connected actress? Or might it be even harder for her to secure roles because of her family connections? We may never know, but the Hollywood Nepo baby Delulu goes crazy. There is her unfortunate repeated use of a transphobic slur in several past interviews. I don't know what compelled her to say this to a journalist. There's the plantation wedding. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively got married on a slave plantation in 2012, specifically South Carolina's Boone Plantation and Gardens.
At this point, we have established that Blake Lively is possessed by the spirit of a slave owner's wife named Agatha, thanks to her 2012 plantation wedding. Agatha, for reference.
According to Ryan Reynolds, what they saw before was, quote, a wedding venue on Pinterest. No, I'm being so serious. And what they saw after was a place built upon devastating tragedy. Imagine missing the tragedy of it all on a slave plantation. They have said they're ashamed that they allowed themselves to be uninformed about systemic racism. This E! News article reads, caught up in the weeds of tablescapes and menus, neither she nor Reynolds stopped to consider what it meant to actually wed at a plantation, the pretty backdrop not quite covering up the atrocities committed. No notes. But Blake's antebellum fixation did not end there. In 2014, she launched Preserve, which was a lifestyle and e-commerce site that offered expensive clothing and home decor inspired by the allure of the antebellum South. What could possibly go wrong? How about a controversial fashion editorial entitled Allure of Antebellum, styled by Blake Lively herself? The article romanticizes the pre-Civil War era South, praising the innate sense of social poise and unparalleled warmth and authenticity of the era's Southern women, using antebellum in a way that evoked nostalgia, which I'd say is pretty on brand at this point. The editorial celebrated Southern women's roles as belles of the ball. This portrayal, however, ignored the fact that much of the social status these women enjoyed came from their direct association with the plantation system, and therefore the horrific realities of Black enslaved people who were brutally exploited, to say the absolute very least. Upon the site's closure, Blake said, "I poured everything I had into that company," adding that walking away from it felt like a death. Her repeated idealization of the antebellum South is noteworthy, so now I must ask, preserve what, Blake Lively? Finally, and most virally, there is Blake's history of perceived mean girl interviews.
If you haven't seen Gossip Girl, just about everything has happened. Unbelievable. No, you'd be surprised how much hasn't happened. You know, at the end of the first season, I was like, okay, well, what happens now? But we have a few more characters already in the beginning of the first season that come in and mess up our lives even more. We start in the Hamptons, which is a staple of New York socialites that you haven't yet seen. And, you know, we've all kind of dated each other, so we have to date more people or each other's parents, and I don't know.
But I think I'm just brunette because of the books.
And everyone knows blondes are nicer anyway.
Over there.
Moment by me. Chuck has a matching pet monkey with coordinating outfits, and I was like, I would love to be part of the show, but I can't act with a monkey. And then I got a few of them. I'm just kidding.
She got a few of them.
Come on, it was a joke. Lord have mercy.
And then we got the big one. Kirsty Flaw, a Norwegian entertainment reporter and journalist, recently uploaded a video here on youtube.com entitled The Blake Lively Interview That Made Me Want to Quit My Job. The interview dates back to 2016 and shows Blake Lively with co-star Parker Posey during the press tour for Cafe Society. There's a lot to unpack here. Kirsty opens up by congratulating Blake on her little bump, which is of course playfully alluding to her pregnancy that had recently publicly been announced. And this was Blake's response.
Well, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
What? Not only was Kirsty not pregnant, she couldn't have been, ever, because she's infertile, and she said that comment felt like a bullet. I'm not assuming Blake knew that, but why did she say that? Like, was she trying to fat shame her? I've seen some people try to defend Blake on this by saying like, oh, the interviewer made a comment about her body, she had a right to clap back. Okay, but one of them was openly pregnant, one of them did have a baby bump, and it was just a congratulations. Like, that response was so uncalled for, it was just cruel. Kirsty then asks about the film's costume, because, you know, it's a period piece set in the 1930s.
Did you guys love wearing those kind of clothes that you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, working in digital...
Everyone wants to talk about the clothes, but I wonder if they would ask the men about the clothes.
I would.
Blake immediately snipes back, turning to her co-star and rhetorically asking whether male actors would be asked about costumes, and Kirsty replies saying she would ask them as well. But that doesn't matter because these two actresses remain turned away from the woman interviewing them and start having their own rambling discussion about the beautiful costumes worn by the various male characters in the film. When Parker Posey brings up one of these costumes, Blake awkwardly tries to save face, I think, by going, oh yeah, that's what I was saying, like, because they're so beautiful.
Jesse's suits and
that's what I'm saying. His wardrobe was beautiful.
I know.
Corey's wardrobe was gorgeous. Those
so
high-waisted pants.
No, that's not what you were saying. You were being self-righteous and trying to make some contrived feminist point about women in film being asked about costumes.
The women that have the clothes. But I feel like the women get the conversation, but it's like every detail with everybody.
Yeah,
it's
it was amazing.
Which is actually quite anti-feminist. Yes, I am once again lamenting about people downplaying the tireless work and effort of costume designers, a rare female-dominated industry. As some of you know, my discipline is fashion history, and there is some overlap. And let me tell you something about costumes, okay? Costumes help set tone. They are part of world building. They help portray character. They are communicative devices. They are a piece of the heart and soul of every movie, especially period films. Like, of course she was asking about the costumes. This is also interesting considering just how much time Blake Lively has spent discussing her own fashion pieces used for a working class woman in a film characterized by her DV survival story. And I'm sorry, but how silly to try to play some kind of feminist card while promoting a Woody Allen film. Be so authentic. The rest of the interview is just incredibly uncomfortable. These two continue to completely ignore Kirsty, like literally as if she were not there. And it just gives such mean girl energy. I can't imagine the entitlement you would have to have in order to exhibit that behavior. Like to sit there and treat someone so poorly just because they were checks notes trying to do their job. Kirsty has made a few follow-up videos and has noted that Blake has not apologized, but I don't think she's holding her breath.
Movie that takes place during this, the golden age of Hollywood.
While we were dressed in these incredible vintage couture gowns and jewelry, and there's an excitement to that because it wasn't faked.
But Blake is not the only one getting bad press now. A report from the Daily Mail, yes I know, calls Baldoni chauvinistic and says he was borderline abusive on set. This was followed by reports saying that he made Blake Lively uncomfortable by holding a kissing scene for too long. Blake had also been acting as the intimacy coordinator before they hired a real one. There's a video from the set where Blake is like trying to pull Justin in to show him how to kiss her. And this was alluded to in one particular interview, and Blake asks where the interviewer saw the video, and Colleen's like, oh, I saw that too.
Sometimes you were even the intimacy coordinator in some of those sexier scenes. Like we saw you.
That shouldn't be happening, by the way. I just want to be clear that you should not be the intimacy coordinator. You should definitely hire intimacy coordinators, which we did have.
Well,
thank
you
goodness.
were teaching Justin how to pull you in.
Where have you
loved
seen
that.
this?
That
I
clip.
actually just saw it too. It was on Instagram.
As she points out, Blake Lively as an actress should not have been acting as her own intimacy coordinator. And she also felt that Justin had fat shamed her. So it appears he asked the on-set trainer how much Blake weighed in order to train to lift her up because he had to do that in a scene or two. And I guess he has a history of back problems, so that does kind of make sense. But Blake had recently given birth to her 4th child, and yeah, I mean, her feelings are valid in this too. There are other clips shot by witnesses on set where Blake seems visibly annoyed at Justin, so it appears the tension has been brewing for a minute. As of now, Justin has retained the services of PR crisis manager Melissa Nathan, who also represented Johnny Depp during the Depp versus Heard trial, which is... yeah, this is seemingly in response to these negative headlines affecting Baldoni, and certain people have tried to say that this must be the reason that all these unflattering moments of Blake Lively throughout her career are cropping up, and I don't really buy that. To me, it seems like she's been digging herself into a hole throughout this press tour, and now with hordes of people focused on Blake and trying to find her interviews and Googling her, etc. I mean, this stuff has already been out for years, so it makes sense that people are finding it again. None of this is new, and maybe you don't think it's relevant, but Blake certainly has a long history of being tone deaf, as many articles have pointed out. Maybe looking into this past behavior can help in providing context for her current behavior. Another It Ends With Us star, Brendan Sklenar, who plays Atlas, issued a statement defending Blake Lively and Colleen Hoover, vilifying the women who put so much of their heart and soul into making this film because they believe so strongly in its message seems counterproductive and detracts from what this film is about. It is, in fact, the opposite of the point. What may or may not have happened behind the scenes does not and hopefully should not detract from what our intentions were in making this film. It's been disheartening to see the amount of negativity being projected online. Okay, Brendan, but like no one was being vilified for being passionate about the film and its message. In fact, they were doing the exact opposite. The criticism is directly centered on their callous handling of this movie's very serious themes and the way they have instead used this opportunity to promote various unrelated products instead of inviting for meaningful discussion. And I'm kind of bored of the Blake Lively hate train so forced takes because I don't think this is just internet hate. What about the very real DV survivors loudly and rightfully criticizing the film and the behaviors of those involved in its making. Is it bad press, or is it the consequences of your actions? In any case, this definitely isn't hurting the film, which at the time of me recording this has now grossed more than $137 million at the box office. I think the budget was like $25 million, so it's profitable. My takeaway is perhaps the writing was on the wall, or rather, in the books Colleen Hoover writes. I mean, the foundation for this seemed shaky at best, even before the coloring book scandal. The book is first and foremost classified as a romance novel. The book's own publisher said it's a story about a workaholic with a too-good-to-be-true romance who can't stop thinking about her first love. Anything else you want to add? And Blake Lively's recent behavior on the press tour fits a pattern of bad interviews and unpleasant behavior she's been exhibiting for years. And while I do agree with Brandon that feud rumors and cast drama detracts from the film's theme, it was the not-so-subtle tension between the cast members and their conflicting presentation of the film that unfortunately clouded its messaging in the first place. At the end of the day, I do hope there is still potential for this film to have any sort of positive impact and possibly help people who have been in similar situations or are in similar situations. And if you liked it or found it useful, I think that's wonderful. It is 12:45 a.m. Thank you so much for all the love on my last video, by the way. At the time of recording this, it has just hit 140,000 views, and I'm so very grateful. I had so much fun making that one, and I've been having even more fun reading all your comments and anecdotes, so thank you very much. If you liked this video, I would greatly appreciate if you liked and subscribed and maybe left a respectful comment, and I will hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye!